Halfway through our countdown, at number 5 is Ross Lynch. You would know him if you watched the Disney show Austin and Ally, where he took on one of the title characters, Austin. Being in the Disney spotlight throughout his teens, he revealed it was very difficult because people expect you to be the character that they see on TV. He admitted that he got lonely often and said that it was hard for people around him to accept the fact that he wasn't actually his character Austin. He said, "People start to think that because you come from Disney that you're a certain way. You're perceived to be such an angel, and really you're just an actor that booked a job." Ross also said that people on the Disney team would also make it seem like they found him and raised him, but to him it was always just a job and he had a regular life outside of it. Or try to, at least. Coming in hot at number 4 is Brenda Song. Most people who think of Brenda Song immediately think of her iconic Disney character, London Tipton, from The Suite Life of Zack and Cody. It's hard to forget a character like that, in my opinion, but that was the problem for her, the typecast once you tried to break away from Disney. When asked if she regrets her time on Disney, she has always said no, but admitted that it was difficult growing up on TV and Disney at that. Similar to Vanessa Hudgens, when auditioning for other work outside of Disney, casting directors had a very hard time not seeing her as London Tipton. She struggled with being able to book roles, and roles that she did book had very similar character traits to her character from The Suite Life of Zack and Cody. I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm personally guilty of this because I cannot picture her as anyone else but London Tipton. And when I see her in other movies, I'm like, it's just weird. It's not London Tipton. Taking over our 3rd spot is Zendaya. This Disney star continued to work on Disney even after taking on one of the lead roles in their TV series Shake It Up. She starred alongside Bella Thorne, and even after it ended, she continued to book some other roles on Disney, like her show Casey Undercover. But her experience with Disney wasn't always easy, and even though she has had some positive things to say about the network, she also said her time on Shake It Up was very difficult at times. She admitted to J14 that during her time filming, she was forced to compete against her co-star Bella Thorne, who was also her close friend. She said, "We were kind of forced to compete against each other. It made the whole first season of the show just very awkward for us." Since then, though, they have become good friends, but Zendaya admits it was never easy feeling like you're being pinned against your co-star, let alone someone who is also your good friend. That would freaking suck. Rolling into number 2 is Kelly Berglund. She starred on Disney show Lab Rats and admits that being on the Disney Channel is an opportunity of a lifetime, but that it does come with its struggles. She talked to LaPom magazine and admitted that you sort of know what you're signing up for when you step into the Disney world, but that it doesn't make it any easier. She tried to warn other young stars about how hard it is to grow up in that Disney spotlight. She admitted that having your awkward teen years happen in front of the world can be a struggle. She said, "Being a teenager and growing up can already be tough enough as it is. Try having your awkward years put in front of a spotlight for the whole world to see." On top of that, she said she always felt like she was trying to meet other people's expectations, and it made it hard for her to find who she really was at that time. I can't imagine having to live my awkward years in front of the world, because they were bad. Very bad. Winning the number 1 spot is Ally and AJ. Fans were pumped recently when they released an uncensored version of their song Potential Breakup Song, which actually came out back in 2007. Their music career took off while they were under Disney Channel's music label, Hollywood Records, but then they took a massive break from music altogether and then later revealed why. Apparently it was their time under Disney that made them ultimately decide to walk away from their music. During an interview with Playboy magazine, AJ said, "We just lost love a little bit, you know? We had experienced so much as kids, and I kind of feel like we learned a lot about the industry that put a little bit of bad taste in our mouth. Whether it was a couple of people who we worked with, or whether it was just trying to find the right inspiration, or what have you." Fans were not satisfied with her short explanation, and to this day, people still wonder what exactly happened that made them up and leave so abruptly, it seemed. I'm thinking it was some of the people she worked with.
And at number 10, we have Hilary Duff. Even though Hilary Duff was on another list in this series, I wanted to bring her back for another reason. Hilary Duff and Disney announced last year that they would be coming out with a reboot of the beloved teen show, Lizzie McGuire. But the series' original showrunner, Terry Minsky, decided to leave the reboot shortly after because of creative differences. After this, Hilary posted to her story that another Disney show, Love, Simon, would be moving from Disney to Hulu because of adult themes, with Hilary writing over it, quote, "feels familiar," which made everyone think that was happening to the Lizzie reboot. Hillary ended up confirming that theory shortly after in a post where she said she hoped the series could move to Hulu, as the show was going to be about 30-year-old Lizzie and it couldn't be made under PG restrictions. But sadly, Disney said no to the move and the reboot was cancelled, with Hillary saying on Instagram, quote, "I want any reboot of Lizzie to be honest and authentic to who Lizzie would be today. It's what the character deserves." Continuing to insinuate that the show was cancelled because it was too mature. And at number 9, Love, Simon. This Disney Plus show was pitched and in the works until it was cancelled by Disney for not being family friendly enough. The show was based on a movie around a young teen who's struggling with their sexuality and fears that he will prematurely be outed by a fellow classmate. A source told Variety, quote, "Disney felt many issues on the show, including alcohol use and sexual exploration, would not fit in with the family-friendly content on Disney Plus, and it will be moved to Hulu under the name Love, Victor." The film's director, Greg Berlanti, said the show did showcase drinking, but incredibly limited themes of sexuality. And this is not the first LGBTQ+ to get axed by Disney, potentially showing some bias from the network for these types of projects. And at number 8, Jake Paul. Jake Paul leveraged his Vine fame to score the role of Dirk on the Disney Channel show Bizaardvark, but he was cut from the show shortly after his YouTube blog started to gain too much attention for Disney to handle. Jake talked about his negative experience with Disney on the Impulsive podcast and revealed the real reason behind his exit. Apparently, a lot of it had to do with money. Paul said, quote, "I'm sitting there on Disney Channel literally making crumbs compared to what I'm making doing my YouTube channel." At the time Jake was axed, Jake actually said that he was fired because of his online stunts. So either Jake isn't being truthful here or there were a few different reasons that both parties decided to end the partnership. Let me know below what you think of that one. And at number 7, Stephanie Scott. Stephanie Scott starred in the Disney show Ant Farm. However, she told BuzzFeed back in 2015 that the role forced her to, quote, "sugarcoat everything all the time," saying in the interview, quote, "That's one of the hardest things, not being able to express myself in a certain way or being stuck having to promote something or say something that you don't believe in." Going on to say that hiding her real feelings and emotions became hard for her, and maintaining an image of being perfect and pure not only hurt her career, but also the way she felt about her Disney character. And at number 6, Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard is another former Disney star that left because of money. Clearly, Disney is pretty cheap. So Terrence Howard was actually the person first cast as War Machine in Iron Man, but he was replaced by Don Cheadle in Iron Man 2. The reason was money. Disney had originally offered him a reported $8 million for Iron Man 2 when he signed a 3-movie contract with the franchise. But when it actually was time to film, he only was set to receive $1 million. Howard obviously was not okay with that, and he was apparently fired and replaced with Cheadle.
At number 5, Jake T. Austin. Jake T. Austin was still in Disney's good books up until 2013 when he got in some legal trouble. The former star of Wizards of Waverly Place had just moved over to one of Disney's other networks, Freeform, starring in the show The Fosters. Even though he was moving on to more mature roles, it was still recommended that he stay out of bad press. Clearly, he didn't do that because he's on this list. In 2013, Jake started having some trouble with the law as he was caught driving under the influence on a few occasions. In one incident, he crashed his car into a parked car while under the influence, and another instance saw him get involved in a hit-and-run car crash. Though there were no injuries, Jake still faced bad press for his trouble with the law and being in possession of alcohol. At number 4, Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato was quickly becoming another big Disney star after the success of Camp Rock and Sunny with a Chance, but in 2010 there came a scandal that was seemingly the beginning of the end for her Disney career. News broke of an incident between Demi and one of her dancers that changed her image and saw execs scrambling to bury this story. The incident happened while Demi was on tour with the Jonas Brothers, and as Demi was boarding their flight, she was aggravated after having gotten in trouble with her manager for her behavior the night before. Demi assumed that one of her dancers had tattletailed on her, and so she found one of the dancers that she held responsible and had a brief altercation with her. Demi went to her seat and left everyone else on the flight in shock. Demi left the dancer with a black eye, but she was about to face much worse as news broke of this outburst. Demi ended up leaving the tour to recover from emotional and physical distress, but not too long afterwards, Disney was done with the star, leaving Camp Rock and Sunny with a Chance up in the air. At number 3, Hilary Duff. It was a feud to end all Disney feuds. There's nothing worse than two teen girls fighting over a boy because you know how messy that can get. This is what happened between Hilary Duff and Lindsay Lohan during their years-long feud over Aaron Carter. Their feud first started in 2001 when Aaron Carter was on the set of Lizzie McGuire. The two met and hit it off and they started dating for a bit. Little did Hilary know for a while, but Aaron was also dating Lindsay Lohan at the same time. They both had a relationship with Aaron for a little over a year, and after they both ended things with him, they both could have just gone their separate ways, but oh no, of course not. Instead, they had a public feud which consisted of both girls crashing each other's film premieres and talking about each other in the media. They antagonized each other for years before deciding that they're too old for their squabbles. Though this wasn't a huge controversial scandal, it was still a big thing for a while to see two Disney darlings at each other's throats like that. They were low-key shady, and all because of a boy. I mean, he cheated on you with each other. Definitely not someone worth fighting over. At number 2, Bella Thorne. Looking at Bella Thorne now, you see her as someone who is often in the news for something negative. Recently, she's been criticized for her diss of her ex-girlfriend Tana Mojo in her newest song, and last summer she also faced backlash for her OnlyFans scam. But in the past, back in her Disney days, things were different. She was sheltered and marketed as an innocent kid with a lot of talent. As she grew up, Bella told sources about how Disney made her conform to their standards, even though all she wanted to do was branch out and be herself. One of her attempts of being herself caused a scandal after Bella was photographed wearing a specific bathing suit when she was a teenager that wasn't deemed brand friendly by Disney. According to Bella, this scandal nearly cost her her job and her family's livelihood, and she said that any other scandals after that would have caused her to get fired. She was forced to be someone else for the duration of her time at Disney, and that scandal is a reminder of how seriously they take their stars' public image. And finally at number 1, Adrienne Bailon. The Cheetah Girls films were another set of hit films from the Disney Channel, and obviously the film stars had to conform with the harsh standards that all other Disney stars had to. After making 3 films with the company, one of the film stars, Adrienne Bailon, was looking to branch out from Disney and step into roles that were more suited for her age. Because she was in her 20s, she wanted to step away from these films, and to do so, she came up with a scheme that would no doubt end her contract. Adrienne ended up leaking her own private photos, causing a stir online and in the media. This bad press was obviously not good for Disney, and so they were forced to let her go. The media picked the scandal apart because of how wild it was, since it started off as a mere leak and turned into a scandal after it was discovered that Adrienne was behind it all, and so after all was said and done, the Cheetah Girls were no more, Adrienne was out. But hey, at least she got what she wanted, right? Silver lining. Now I want you guys to tell me what your favorite Disney Channel show or movie was. Whether it's old school, new school, or anything in between, I'm sure there are some of you out there who are Disney Channel fans just like me, so tell me about it down in the comments.
Starting off our countdown is Miley Cyrus. She has talked about her Disney experience on more than one occasion, revealing the struggles she faced after taking on the epic role of Hannah Montana. Throughout her career, Miley has shared that she struggled with an eating disorder as a young girl and that she felt wearing makeup and a wig every day was the definition of what it meant to be a pop star. It was difficult for her to really find herself as Miley because the world knew her as Hannah Montana. Her mom is still her manager to this day, and she also admitted that Disney was not always the best to work for. She said she started understanding how many people were taking advantage of her young daughter and revealed that Miley was grossly, her quote, underpaid. It even came to light that Miley didn't even own her name during that time. Since her character outside of Hannah Montana was actually Miley Stewart on the show, they actually had rights to her name, Miley. Many reasons led up to her decision to quit in 2010, and even though she had a tough experience as a kid, she recently said she would totally do a reboot. So, but maybe now it's different because she's an adult. She can handle the Disney network. Coming up next, number 9 is Joe Jonas. He was just one of the brothers from the boy band the Jonas Brothers, but he took on the lead role in the Disney movies Camp Rock. In recent years, Joe wrote a piece for Vulture which highlighted his time at Disney. In the piece, he revealed that he and his brothers always had to sugarcoat their music and lives to maintain their innocent Disney persona. He said their lyrics actually had to be reviewed and approved by the Disney team, and if anything was too sexual or provoking, then they were told to change it. That was actually one of the main reasons that they decided to quit. He also said that Disney controlled their creativity too much, and he started to feel like one of their puppets. For any young child star wanting a music career outside of Disney, this would have been a good warning for them. Outside of the personality image that they had to maintain, he also hated the fact that he had to shave every single day to play a role that was much younger than he was in real life. That would suck as a man. Moving on to number 8, we have Hilary Duff. There have been a lot of conflicting stories about what exactly led to her decision to leave Disney and her lead role as Lizzie McGuire. But fans got some kind of confirmation back in 2003 when her mom did an interview with Entertainment Weekly and claimed it had to do with her paycheck. Susan Duff claimed that Disney was trying to bully her daughter into accepting whatever offer they wanted to make for a sequel to the Lizzie McGuire movie. Her mom said that Hillary ended up walking away from the sequel, but then Disney walked away from the whole franchise. Hillary also spoke about it and said that it really had an effect on her mental health, which is why she chose to bow out for a while. She said, "I was just making records and touring and making movies and then doing it all over again. By the end of it, I was like, I'm done. I don't enjoy this anymore. I'm not who I want to be." So I guess Disney is not paying their stars enough is what I am starting to realize. Sliding into spot number 7 is Selena Gomez. The Wizards of Waverly Place star left her Disney days behind and had no problem explaining to her fans why. It was a pretty simple explanation and was the classic case of feeling the pressure to live up to that innocent Disney image. She told the New York Times, "I was being held to this expectation of being the good girl. I knew deep down that this wasn't what I wanted to do, being exhausted of forcing something that wasn't right." According to Refinery29, she decided to break away from Disney and actually signed a new contract with Interscope instead. At that point, she allegedly let go of her mother acting as her manager and also had split up with her then boyfriend, Justin Bieber. This was a very big moment in her career, and that is when she released her album, Revival. Once the album was out, she admitted it was the first time that she could breathe and no longer felt like she had to maintain the Disney guidelines. No one really realized just how bad her time with Disney was, and fans were shocked to hear her admit that it actually made her depressed and put her in a really low spot in her life. Rolling into number 6 is Dylan and Cole Sprouse. The twins took over the Disney Channel with their hit show The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody and then The Sweet Life on Deck. From the outside looking in, it seemed like they had the world in their hands. But they suddenly left the Disney network behind and fans were shocked to learn their show would not continue. The boys have opened up about what happened and said they tried to pitch a spin-off idea to the Disney team, but they shut it down. Dylan explained and said, "When we had pitched our idea, it was kind of the situation where they had almost laughed in our faces." He then said Disney came back to them a year later with an idea that was essentially the same thing as their original pitch. That is when he said he and his brother Cole basically laughed in their face and walked out. That was the last meeting they ever had with Disney, and despite having years-long relationship with them, things ended up leaving on a very icy note. They have no problem warning others that Disney might steal your ideas. So keep them to yourself.
At number 5, we have Hillary Duff. Do you remember when the Lizzie McGuire reboot was rumored to being a thing? Everyone was so hyped for it, only for it to be put in the back burner indefinitely. So in case you forgot or don't know what Lizzie McGuire was, it was a show about a middle school girl named Lizzie McGuire, as she grew up. Typical Disney Channel friendly shenanigans, and she also had this alter ego cartoon that would voice out her innermost thoughts, which was the show's signature thing. It was a hit and helped boost Hillary Duff's growing popularity as she became one of Hollywood's it girls from the 2000s. Over a decade after the show's end and the industry was on a nostalgic reboot phase, Lizzie McGuire was sure to be one of them because why not? So this reboot was overly hyped and had allegedly already began filming 2 episodes before it was cancelled. The reason for this was creative differences between the writers and Hillary herself. In a public statement, she said, "I know the efforts and conversations have been everywhere trying to make a reboot work, but sadly, and despite everyone's best efforts, it isn't going to happen." Fans were extremely disappointed but understood where Hillary was coming from. She wanted the show to portray Lizzie authentically, how a 30-year-old would behave today. She explained that this authenticity was probably what scared the network, implying that her vision wouldn't cater to their Disney Channel friendly values. Next up is Brenda Song. Playing our favorite Crazy Rich Asian, London Tipton, was the best thing to happen for her career, but being so closely associated with Disney Channel definitely had its own downsides. In 2008, she was offered a role in Clint Eastwood's movie Gran Torino. It had a large Hmong American cast, which would have been great for Brenda as she is of Hmong and Thai descent. But due to the nature of the film, one scene including a very graphic, non-Disney friendly scene, Disney made her turn down the role. This movie ended up winning an Oscar and Brenda was beyond devastated. It's unclear whether they did this out of discussion over unnecessarily overly graphic scenes depicting women being taken advantage of and they had Brenda's best interest in mind, or because they simply did not want their actors to be doing non-Disney friendly things. I'm gonna assume the latter because Disney is a star-making machine factory and whatever they say goes. At number 3, we have Christy Carlson Romano. In this list edition, it wasn't necessarily Disney, but her co-worker who she had issues with. Christy's career with Disney spanned throughout the early 2000s, from Cadet Kelly to voicing Kim Possible to even Stevens, which is where she met the infamous Shia LaBeouf. The actress turned YouTuber shared to her subscribers that the two didn't really get along on set, but they weren't the only ones. Apparently, Shia's father was also just a negative presence among the entire cast. While she didn't justify specifically who else didn't get along, she said, "There's also kind of like set politics. Every set has some people that don't get along. On my set, from time to time, it was me and Shia, but I think there was other people that didn't gel well as well." She also shared that there would be scenes that she didn't feel was safe for her to do, and luckily, all she had to do was voice that out and it would be written out of the script. She said her character Ren was constantly written doing some type of physical humor that she didn't feel matched her personality. As Disney Channel kids, she had her set limitations as well. She said doing certain things not permissible by the Disney executives would make them uninsurable. For example, she said they couldn't go rollerblading, surfing, or literally any sports without asking the staff first. At number 2, we have Bella Thorne. Remember how I said being on Disney Channel was everyone's dream at one point? I was wrong. In an interview, Bella shared how she never wanted to be a Disney star in the first place. She only accepted the role as Cece in Shake It Up because her family was risking homelessness at the time and that was their only way out. She said that being on Disney didn't feel natural to her, and similar to her other Disney Channel seniors before her, she felt like she was playing a role outside of the show as well. She admitted that playing Cece meant speaking in a higher pitched voice to maintain that innocence Disney loves. It made her feel like a liar because, Shake It Up aside, she had to live as somebody she wasn't. She said, "I don't like being recognized as a former Disney child star because I was always told I had to fit into a certain mold and be this person I wasn't. It was like being in a box." After Disney, she couldn't let go of her affiliation with the company no matter what she did, so she described her post-Disney days as starting from the bottom and working her way up again. Finally, at number 1, we have Rowan Blanchard. If we're talking people who don't get along, we have to bring up the drama between Rowan and former co-star Araya Shelton. While it's unclear if the animosity between each other occurred while filming Girl Meets World, it was made clear after the show's cancellation. Fans found that Araya was liking anti-feminist posts on Instagram, which Rowan was made aware of. In an Instagram post, fans commented to Rowan that they and him, to which she responded back with, "I don't have time for him and his stupidity, LOL." This issued an uproar among the fandom, but Rowan never brought it back up or added more fuel to the fire. In an interview, Araya confirmed everyone's thoughts, admitting that Rowan did not like him. But he was quick to remind everyone that he didn't care. He said, "She's a very, passionate girl. She definitely wholeheartedly believes what she does." He also said he holds no grudges against her, as if that would matter. It was later revealed that he had a restraining order put on him from one of his former female friends after he reportedly kicked her so hard she had inflamed intestines and bruised muscles. So maybe Rowan is right and he's just not the greatest guy. Yeah, behind the scenes, Disney probably isn't the happiest place or network on earth. What do you think?
Number 10 is Joe Jonas. Jonas Brothers Joe Jonas spoke with Wonderland magazine in May 2019 about the struggles of being a Disney Channel star alongside his brothers. Joe made it clear how Disney was a saving grace for the trio when he said, quote, "When we were getting started, we were in a position at one point where we were without a label and we didn't really know what the next steps were going to be. And Disney reached out with a huge opportunity for us to be signed by them and work on a TV show. This was kind of a saving grace for us in that point of our career, and we jumped on that opportunity." But still, Joe went on to say, quote, "As you get older and you're a young adult and you're still on the Disney Channel, that can feel a little uncomfortable comfortable. Creatively, you can feel like you're a little boxed in and you can't really expand and grow. Lyrically, what you're going through in that time in your life, you have to protect your audience by only writing what Disney would approve. It was a little bit tricky as we got older, that's for sure. But that's just the music. While chatting with Vulture way back in 2013, Joe called out the Disney Channel for its apparently terrible writing and strict rules for their film projects. He said, quote, "It just ended up being some weird slapstick humor that only a 10-year-old would laugh at. They took out the kissing scene that Nick had. I had to shave every day because they wanted me to pretend like I was 16 when I was 20. When the show was done, I cut my hair off and grew as much of a beard as I could. We went along with it at the time because we thought Disney was our only real shot, and we were terrified that it could all be taken away from us at any moment." Now that is the truth of the matter. Disney child stars are all terrified of having Disney pull the rug out from under them, but that'll become more obvious as we continue on. At number 9 today is Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus was probably one of the most popular of the Disney stars with Hannah Montana, where she played a dual life. While the popularity of her show is a huge reason for her popularity now, that doesn't mean it's all peaches and cream. Speaking with Marie Claire back in 2015, the actress and singer explained how being Hannah Montana impacted her mental health, saying, quote, "I was told for so long what a girl is supposed to be from being on Hannah Montana. I was made to look like someone that I wasn't, which probably caused some body dysmorphia because I had been made pretty every day for so long, and then when I wasn't on that show, I was like, who the F am I?" That really spells out the effects of being a child star. In a February 2019 interview on the RuPaul What's the Tea podcast, Miley elaborated on her disillusion with herself when she said, quote, "I didn't really get to be a kid very much because I worked so much, but I wanted that. Since the last record, my last record was called Younger Now, and it says, even though it's not who I am, I'm not afraid of who I used to be. That was my epiphany." Number 8, Dylan Sprouse. If you weren't aware, Cole and Dylan Sprouse were two Disney Channel heavyweights with The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and The Sweet Life on Deck. But instead of the network pulling the rug out from under them, it was actually the twins that turned their back on Disney. For some pretty understandable reasons too. Dylan Sprouse revealed the real reason why he and his twin brother, Cole Sprouse, left the network while speaking with Vulture in December 2017. Dylan spoke about how the pair had, quote, "a really awesome idea for where the show needed to go. But when they brought that idea to the higher ups at Disney, their idea was ultimately turned down." Speaking on that in the same interview, he said, quote, "We were 18. If that isn't old enough to know exactly what the show needs, then, well, I would beg to disagree. I don't think Disney were willing to work with us really ever, so we stopped the show." And honestly, that's kind of punk as hell. Stick it to the man, Dylan. Good job. Number 7, Bella Thorne. Bella Thorne may be one of the most outspoken ex-Disney stars. During a February 2021 interview with Fox News, she said, quote, "There are definitely a lot of pressures in the Disney eye to be so perfect, and I think that's where Disney in a sense goes wrong, because they make their kids seem perfect. That image is very difficult. It's also never been me. I always just like to do what no one else is doing." She would go on to say, quote, "Little kids growing up don't need to see perfect people. Kids need to see real people. They need to see diversity. They need to see intriguing." Bella opened up about another Disney instance during a podcast interview, which is completely different, called High Low with M. Rada in December 2022, recalling a time when, well, quote, "I almost got fired off the Disney Channel because I was 14 and I wore a two-piece on the beach." According to her, there was a fan that got a photo, and when that photo went into the World Wide Web, people began to put Disney under pressure to fire the actress. She said, quote, "Obviously Disney didn't fire me, but also they were like, hey, we're getting a lot of heat for this. Everyone's getting a lot of heat for this because you're in a bikini on the beach," which is when apparently they said, quote, "So she needs to make sure she goes out in board shorts and a loose t-shirt next time she's at the beach." She continued on, quote, "They said, you're lucky Bella has such a fan base that we can't afford to fire her at this moment in time, but if she does one more other thing, we'll fire her." But I didn't even talk about when a Disney casting director also fired Bella because they thought the 10-year-old was flirting with them. What even is that? What? Number 6, Stephanie Scott. While she had released music and acted a little bit before her time at Disney, Stephanie Scott played the role of Lexi Reed on Disney Channel's Ant Farm from 2011 to 2014, which won her a second Young Artist Award and introduced her to a wider audience. While on Disney, she also recorded a bunch of Disney Channel promotional singles, which were released between 2008 and 2012. However, despite her success and time with Disney, in a 2015 interview interview with BuzzFeed, the actress threw some major shade at the network. She claimed that her role as Lexi Reed forced her to, quote, sugarcoat everything all the time. She said, quote, "That's one of the hardest things, not being able to express myself in a certain way or being stuck having to promote something or say something I don't believe in. It's kind of hard after a while when you are feeling things and having a rough time in your personal life and you can't express your emotions through your work," which heavily echoes the feelings of the other stars on this list. Stephanie explained, quote, "I wanted to tell stories of troubled girls where everything isn't perfect all the time. I didn't want it to stop there and be labeled as a Disney girl. I quickly realized I wanted to do more. If you've been on a Disney show, people target you as being the sitcom funny girl who can't take herself seriously and doesn't really have true emotions because they have to be perfect and pure, not shattered and torn in any way."
At number 4, Peggy Lee. Before I get into the current drama that's going on now with Disney, I'd first like to tell you about one actress who's forced to sue Disney because of their contract. It seems as though Disney is already familiar with their stars suing because of their contract, because back in 1987, actress Peggy Lee was blindsided by the media company's release of the film Lady and the Tramp, and a lawsuit ensued. Peggy was one of the people behind the making of the 1955 film. Peggy voiced the character Peg, as well as the Siamese cats Cy and Am. Very creative. On top of that, Peggy also sang and co-wrote a handful of songs in the film, like He's a Tramp and Bella Notte. Peggy also contributed to the storyline of the film, making an effort to keep the film family-friendly and to avoid anything too triggering for younger audiences. Needless to say, Peggy contributed a lot to the film, and for all of her hard work, she was paid $4,500. Lady and the Tramp went on to become Disney's best-selling film, dethroning the other Disney classic Snow White, which had held the title for so many years, and because it was such a success in its heyday, Disney decided to do a wide release of the film on VHS in the late 80s, and this brought the company $90 million in profit. Now, this was great news for Disney because they had made so much money, but it was bad news for Peggy because she didn't get any of that. Apparently, Disney was reluctant to share their profits with Peggy, and they only offered her a small fee, so she took matters to court. After taking a look at Peggy's contract, it was found that Disney technically did not have the right to sell copies of Peggy's work, and therefore they were in violation of their contractual agreement with the actress. After a 2-week court battle, it was determined that Peggy deserved a bigger cut from the VHS sales, and so she was awarded $2.3 million. This case is pretty similar to what's going on between Scarlett Johansson and Disney, so it will be interesting to see how things play out here, and maybe history will repeat itself and Disney will have to shell out a hefty amount of money. Now, before I go any further with the list, I would like to ask you guys consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also consider taking some time to check out my gaming channel Viper Girl if Minecraft gameplay is something that might interest you. I upload new videos every single day, so come check out what we've got going on over there and subscribe. At number 3, Emma Stone. Now, although this has yet to be confirmed, sources say that actress Emma Stone could be the next one to seek legal action against Disney. Emma was under contract for Disney after starring in the movie Cruella, which was released in May of this year. This film's release is really what's causing the problem with Emma, because much like Scarlett Johansson and the Black Widow movie, the theatrical release and premiere access on Disney Plus were on the same day, meaning that audiences were able to choose between going to the theater to watch the movie or stay at home and stream it from the company's platform. As part of her contract, Emma was given royalties from the film's theatrical release, which means that she wasn't given a portion of the money from the streaming platform and therefore was cheated out of a pretty good sum of money. Now, after seeing Scarlett take on Disney in court, there are reports that Emma might be inclined to join in on that lawsuit to fight for wages lost due to this loophole in the contract. Do you guys think that Emma should join in on the fight? Some people have said that she made enough money and doesn't need to fight for more, but others say that it's less about the money and more so about the principle to show that these companies can't do these kinds of things to their contractors. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. At number 2, Emily Blunt. Another star who is reportedly considering taking legal action against Disney is Emily Blunt. Emily's film Jungle Cruise was recently released, and just like Emma Stone and Scarlett Johansson, her film was released in theaters and on the Disney Plus platform at the same time, causing the same problem that the other two actresses are currently facing. The problem that a lot of people have pointed out with the film being released in both theaters and on Disney Plus is that those who choose to watch it from home on the streaming platform are able to pay a premiere access fee and then watch it as many times as they want, whereas in theaters you just pay for your ticket and you only get to see it once. The potential to make more money is there, but Disney hasn't taken it, which is why Emily Blunt is watching her movie's sales more closely with this release, waiting to make her decision on whether or not she will be suing Disney. Emily has already gone through something similar, as she and her husband John Krasinski had already gotten into a debate with Paramount Plus over the release of their film A Quiet Place 2. It is said that because of the pushback that came with the release of the film due to the pandemic, Emily is very much against this hybrid style of film release, and so we shouldn't really be surprised to see a lawsuit come from Emily as well. She and John were already able to push for a 45-day gap between the theatrical release of A Quiet Place 2 and the Paramount Plus release, so who knows what Emily might fight for this time with Disney. And finally, at number 1, Scarlett Johansson. Now finally, let's talk about Scarlett Johansson and the drama that started all of this in the first place. Following the release of Black Widow, both in theaters and on Disney Plus, Scarlett and her legal team issued a lawsuit against Disney alleging that they breached her contract because they went through with doing a hybrid release of the newest Marvel film. In her lawsuit, the actress alleged that Disney guaranteed an exclusive theatrical release of the film, saying that her salary was to be largely based on box office earnings. In response to the lawsuit, a spokesperson for Disney released a statement saying that the actress's lawsuit had no merit and called the legal action being brought forward, quote, especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, end quote. They also went on to say, quote, Disney has fully complied with Ms. Johansson's contract and furthermore, the release of Black Widow on Disney Plus with Premier Access and has significantly enhanced her ability to earn additional compensation on top of the $20 million she has received to date. At the end of the day, it's not really about the money, but it's the fact that they breached Scarlett's contract. They promised an exclusive theatrical release and then went back on that, and I feel as though this lawsuit is just to turn this action into a lesson for Hollywood. When the film was released on July 9th, it brought in $80 million at the box office and $60 million on Disney Plus, but even though that's a lot of money, it's still the lowest grossing Marvel film to date. It could be because of the pandemic or maybe the hybrid release affected the film's earnings, but I'm sure that at the end of this, the real analytics will be brought forward as Scarlett takes on this huge company in the lawsuit of the year.
At number 10, Vanessa Hudgens. As we are all aware, Disney likes to keep their stars as clean as possible, so when they're caught being a little more adult and risque, that's definitely a problem for the company. This became Vanessa Hudgens' reality in 2007 after some of her private photos got leaked. Vanessa opened up about the scandal years later, saying that this was traumatic for her, having lost her privacy in that moment. It was also a big deal for Disney, who was trying to cover the story up and keep her image intact. Since she was one of the faces of the High School Musical franchise, it was important to the company to make this all go away. Joe Jonas even opened up about this time in Vanessa's life, saying that while he and his brothers were working for Disney at this time, he remembers the day that the scandal broke and how the executives had Vanessa in their office for the whole day trying to deal with that mess. Joe even said that the other executives approached him and his brothers and praised them for not having a scandal like this. This put a lot of pressure on the Jonas brothers to always stay perfect in the eyes of the company, so just knowing how much pressure they had on themselves after that, it must have been so much worse for Vanessa. She apologized to her young fans for the pictures and expressed remorse, and luckily for her, Disney was able to salvage her career after that. At number 9, Jake Paul. Once upon a time in 2017, Jake Paul was a Disney star. I know, shocking. He was one of the stars of the Disney Channel show Bizaardvark, and though the show was a success for both Disney and Jake, too much bad press ended with Jake losing his job. Around this time, Jake was often in the news being slammed for his stunts and tomfoolery because of his Team 10 mates and the disturbances that he had been causing. From lighting backyards on fire to noise complaints, Jake's neighbors had police issuing warnings and fines for all sorts of things, and whenever Jake would get in trouble, the media reported it, and it all got back to Disney. They had apparently been monitoring the situation, but things kept getting out of hand online with Jake's YouTube channel, as he was seen doing things that weren't necessarily brand friendly. Ultimately, Jake and the executives at Disney came to the decision to take Jake out of the equation, and they ended up letting him go in the end. It was a number of scandals that really did Jake in, but it was still serious enough for him to get fired. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, why not consider leaving a like to show your support? Also, don't forget to check out the Sassy channel with our girl Joss for some more content if you're into some sass, reactions, and good vibes as well. It's launching on the 19th, so go subscribe and tell them that I sent you. At number 8, Mitchel Musso. Hannah Montana star Mitchel Musso was having a lot of success at Disney. He had been a series regular on the hit show and even branched off to work on Phineas and Ferb and Pair of Kings, but as we all know, when you get in trouble, you get the axe from the mouse. In 2011, Mitchel Musso was arrested and charged with DUI after failing to stop for an officer directing traffic. Since he was only 20 years old at the time, he was not only caught for drunk driving, but also for drinking under the legal age. He pleaded no contest to the charge, and he was sentenced to 36-month probation, was forced to complete alcohol education classes, and was forced to pay a fine as well. After being charged, Disney made steps toward distancing themselves from Musso.
He was taken off the show Pair of Kings and his prank show was cancelled, and his career was essentially ruined because of it. He had a good run with Disney, but bad press just was too much to cover up and it blew up in their faces. At number 7, Miley Cyrus. In 2008, Disney was hit with a huge scandal that nearly ruined one of their biggest shows at the time. Hannah Montana was a hit and nothing seemed to be derailing the show's success, at least until a photo shoot with Vanity Fair became a serious issue for executives. Miley Cyrus posed on the cover of Vanity Fair in a way that was deemed inappropriate by Disney standards, since the star was seen posing wearing nothing but a bed sheet covering her chest and having an exposed back. Though nothing was really shown, and the then 15-year-old Miley said that she loved the shoot and thought it was very creative, the Disney exec had a meltdown because it wasn't the image that they wanted for her and that it could have ruined Hannah Montana. When the photo was published, parents got concerned because Hannah Montana seemed to be a role model for a lot of kids, and parents didn't want these photos influencing their children. Disney actually accused Vanity Fair of deliberately manipulating Miley and trying to sabotage Disney. The president of Disney Channel Worldwide even saw this as such a huge issue that when speaking about Miley's public image, he said, quote, "For Miley Cyrus to be a good girl is now a business decision for her. Parents have invested in her godliness. If she violates that trust, she won't get it back," end quote. Disney was so invested in her image that it hurt Miley in the long run, as she said over the years. And at number 6, Dog with a Blog. I'm not sure how many of you may be familiar with the show Dog with a Blog, but for those who may be unfamiliar with the show, the title says it all. It was a Disney Channel show about a family dog who wrote a blog. But what the title didn't say is how much it took to get that show off the ground and the scandal that broke around it. Even though I wouldn't say this show was top tier, because from the few episodes that I've seen, it really isn't. There is a scandal around this show that is frankly bigger and more dramatic than the show could ever be. Apparently, there was a scandal surrounding the dog who actually starred in the show. When the role was first cast, the part went to a performing dog named Kuma. Kuma was in all of the promotional material, the photos, and the first 5 episodes of the show. He was the best fit for the role because of his experience, but all of a sudden, he was fired. No, he didn't bite anyone and he didn't have any accident on set. It was because of the drama with his owner over fears that Kuma was being overworked. Kuma's owner said that he'd been overworked on set, having to be on for 12 to 14 hours a day. The stress of working affected Kuma so much that he suffered a seizure on the 3rd day of filming. The owner also said that they were being underpaid for their work, and so she told execs that she would need to pull Kuma from the show for his safety, or at least until there were new guidelines in place for his protection. Instead, the company that hired Kuma sent them a termination letter and Kuma was replaced. Disney didn't want to adjust things for their animal's safety, and so they just got rid of him and replaced him with another performer who wouldn't complain.
Halfway number 5, Chloe Grace Moretz. Chloe Grace Moretz was actually kicked out of a movie to make room for a bigger star. The 2008 Disney movie Bolt starred huge stars like John Travolta and Miley Cyrus. But that wasn't the original plan. Moretz actually was cast and filmed the entire movie as Penny, aka Miley Cyrus's role, but before it hit theaters, she was replaced with Miley Cyrus for that lead role. And even though I assume she was still paid for her work, it's obviously really heartbreaking to be replaced for basically no reason, just because someone is a bigger star. And at number 4, Lelaine Vergara Perez. Lelaine played Lizzie's BFF Miranda in the hit show Lizzie McGuire, but she revealed years later that she was forced to look as white as possible in the show. She revealed this in an Instagram photo she posted a few years ago. The now deleted picture was captioned with, quote, "Most of my life growing up, I was forced to look as white as possible. These days I struggle to find photos where I look as ethnic as possible, like in this photo, the most East Asian I've ever looked. In order to see for most people, you have to zoom in on the face." One of her Lizzie McGuire co-stars, Clayton Snyder, commented on the photo, quote, "You were the first person to open my eyes to the role of race in acting. When asked why you didn't use your last name, said it was too Hispanic. Made me sad." And this isn't the first time Disney has been called out for whitewashing in the past, but thankfully they are making progress now. And at number 3, Riaz Mir. BAFTA-nominated director Riaz Mir spoke against Disney after Disney admitted to using makeup to darken the skin tones of many white actors in the live-action remake of Aladdin. According to a British newspaper, quote, "The company says it resorted to darkening white people for roles requiring skills that cannot be readily found in the Asian community. A stand-in for the movie said, quote, "On one set, 2 palace guards came in and I recognized one as a Caucasian actor, but he was now a darkly tanned Arab." BAFTA-nominated TV director Riaz Mir called Disney's decision, quote, "an insult to the whole industry," adding that the talent exists and they should have tried harder to meet the needs of the film. In at number 2, Gina Carano. Mandalorian actress Gina Carano was recently fired from the Disney franchise after she made some controversial comments on social media. and her firing has some fans upset, saying that they will be canceling their Disney Plus subscriptions because of it. The firing came after Carano shared a photo to social media comparing being a Republican today to being Jewish during the Second World War. After the post went viral, #Fire Gina Carano began trending, and she was abruptly fired from the Star Wars franchise, as well as being dropped by her agency UTA. And since this was not her first controversial post, one source told The Hollywood Reporter that, quote, they've been looking for a reason to fire her for 2 months, and today was the final straw. But in wake of the decision, some feel this is a silencing of conservative voices and shows how left-leaning Hollywood and Disney has become. However, this one is definitely open to interpretation. In at number 1, John Boyega. John Boyega made history when he was cast as a stormtrooper in The Force Awakens, but he also became a target of critics angry the role went to a black man. Many years later, he decided to speak out against Disney and expose that he was pushed aside in the films. In an interview with GQ UK, he said about Disney, quote, what I would say to Disney is to not bring on a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. And by that he was referencing how his character Finn played an important role in the first film, but was slowly morphed into somewhat of a background character in the following movies. He added that this was not a new thing, and he was not the only person of color that worked in the franchise that had this happen to them.
Starting us off at number 10, we have Demi Lovato. Demi was never one to shy away about their experiences with the Kid AIM network. Disney Channel was famous for jumpstarting the careers of many artists that we've grown up and have seen evolve, even after they were done with Disney. During their interview on the Call Me Daddy podcast, they revealed how they and many of their young peers were given this standard as a role model to kids who watch their show. They said they were always in fear of any potential scandals that would break onto the internet, which would put their careers at stake. They said if something happened, there would be conversations. That pressure of you are replaceable was always there. 2 years ago, they released a documentary titled Demi Lovato Dancing with the Devil, where they went more in depth the hardships they endured. An unnamed individual who also worked on Disney had taken advantage of them while they were still a teenager. Even when they tried to contact and confront the person, the exchange went nowhere and only made them feel worse. Fans were extremely concerned and angered for the singer as they said, my Me Too story is me telling somebody that someone did this to me, and they never got in trouble for it. They never got taken out of the movie they were in. Next up, at number 9, we have Miley Cyrus. Admit it, being on Disney Channel was your dream at one point. And for some, they were lucky and got the opportunity. But putting in the work at a young age definitely took a toll, especially if Miley's experience was anything to go by. Sure, by day she was Hannah Montana / Miley Stewart, but by night she had to maintain that super secret double life. She admitted that the role ended up forcing its way into her real life too, as she felt the need to create different versions of herself in order to appease her fans and the showrunners. It was a way of keeping Hannah Montana real and not just a girl on TV. She started on the show at 13 years old, and having to keep up this facade for years, especially during your growing days when you're still figuring yourself out, is very confusing and taxing on your well-being. She admitted that there was a point where she was getting the least pay out of all of her castmates, despite being the main character and her real name being used. At the time, she was naive about it and was just glad that she was gonna be on Disney. She said, my name was Miley on my show, but I didn't own my name, which is quite concerning even if it was just a nickname. There have to be some type of laws to avoid these things. Her mother Tish realized what was happening and hired a legal team to make this process easier for her. Next up, we have Selena Gomez. Growing up as a young teenager has its difficulties. Now imagine being a child going through puberty under a spotlight 24/7. Selena Gomez, as well as her many Disney Channel peers, went through the same thing. She vouched for former bestie Demi Lovato's statement that they were all pushed to embody a perfect human for their fans. She said, that was my job in a way, to be perfect. They're considered a figure kids look up to, and they take that seriously there. Her time growing up and figuring out how to deal with the paparazzi was a whole other obstacle. She recalled how she and former co-stars David Henry and Jake T. Austin struggled to balance this Disney-friendly persona outside of work, even with these grown males chasing after them with their huge flashing cameras. She also mentioned how they became protective of each other once realizing how these encounters could get messy really fast. She said, we were all new to this and they wanted to say things to the paparazzi, but you can't because that's exactly what the paparazzi want. Even when she was 15, there would be times where she would be out at a beach with family or friends and they would be standing by by and taking photos of her dressed in her bikini. Next up, we have Dylan and Cole Sprouse. As we're all aware, reboots and spin-offs are either a hit or a miss, but they tend to just be misses except for the Sweet Life series. The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody was well received by viewers and gained enough of a following that Disney Channel decided to end the first show to start with a new one titled Sweet Life on Deck, which carried off with the twins attending high school on a cruise ship. This spin-off did very well too, even when they removed well-loved characters Maddie and Esteban and brought in newer faces. So after the release of the Sweet Life movie, which was very underwhelming if I'm being honest, and the season came to a close, things got tense between Dylan, Cole, and Disney. Apparently, Disney tried to steal their series pitch for a third installment of the Sweet Life series. In this spin-off, Zack and Cody were to return back to the Tipton Hotel and revolved around them and a young kid who moved in, where shenanigans would ensue. Dylan said that the network essentially laughed in their faces, immediately rejecting the idea, but then they tried to reach middle ground and repitched an idea that was basically the exact same thing as theirs. They weren't even willing to give the twins producer credit, so the Sweet Life series was concluded right then and there, as the actors pretty much left to pursue their degrees, just like their characters. At number 6, we have Zac Efron. While we all fell for him in his breakout role Troy Bolton in the High School Musical trilogy, this fame wasn't exactly what he had in mind for his career. Sure, he was forever grateful for the building blocks it provided him to get his name out there in the first place, but we also have to remember that he was like 19 when the first High School Musical movie came out. So being huge on Disney Channel when you're already at the age you're supposed to phase out of it probably wasn't his first choice. He just really wasn't happy about the legacy that followed him after his Troy days. He was aware that people would look at him and go, and this is all in his words by the way, F that guy. He's done some cool things with cool people, he did that one thing that was funny, but I mean he's still just that effing guy from High School Musical. Even though he became a big time name for this role, it also became a hassle and almost typecasted him, which can be detrimental for growing actors.
Halfway through our list at number 5 is Rowan Blanchard. She gained a massive fan base from her time on the newer Disney show Girl Meets World. Fans were crushed when the series was cancelled after their ratings dropped. Forbes reported that the show lost around 3.6 million viewers between season 1 and season 3. But the one thing that people always loved was Rowan and the fact that she prompted the idea of intersectional feminism. Despite her young age, she rallied for the Me Too movement and openly discussed her sexuality. She made a conscious decision back in 2017 to part ways with Disney following the cancellation of the show. She did an interview with W Magazine and said she left because she felt controlled by them. But she didn't exactly say the name Disney Network, probably to protect herself, but people could piece it together. She said, "I worked for a corporation for 4 years that is known for silencing and crafting your voice. So with that, I just had to very much stand my ground and separate myself, which I think I did." She now says that she loves that she's not recognized anymore for her Disney character, but she's now recognized for her activism. In spot number 4 is Raven Simone. Fans were devastated when Raven left Disney for a while after her TV series That's So Raven became a massive success. But she shocked everyone when she signed on to do a spin-off of the original show called Raven's Home at 33 years old. Fans really didn't believe that she would work with Disney ever again, thinking that there was bad blood between them, but turns out there wasn't. Kind of. She did admit to feeling the pressure of having to try and fit the mold of Raven from the show, and not who she was in real life, which is also Raven. When she came out in 2016, she revealed that Disney was always very accepting of her and her sexuality, but that people involved in the network weren't. She explained that during the last season of That's So Raven, she wore jeans and a vest and tie, and one of the members went up to her mom and said, "She looks too much like a lesbian. Can you tell her to put on a skirt and makeup? Because then they'll accept her and come to her concert." As we know from other examples on this list, fitting the Disney look can add a lot of pressure to someone, especially someone who felt like they couldn't really express who they really were. Luckily, Disney has been more supportive and inclusive with the LGBTQ community since her original show. Taking over number 3, we have Shia LaBeouf. If you followed his career, you would see that he is definitely one to experiment with new projects and avenues. But there was a route he refused to go down when he was working with Disney on the classic show Even Stevens. He did an interview with MTV and said that he stopped working with Disney because they were very controlling over where his career was headed. Turns out they wanted him to start a music career. When looking at Disney, most of their stars started out with acting and then went into singing as their career grew. Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, Hilary Duff, to name a few. Even Raven-Symoné. During his interview with MTV, he said, "I never came out with a music thing, even though Disney will push you that way." He went on to say that he always felt out of place at Disney and never felt like he truly belonged. Can you guys just imagine, like, Shia LaBeouf as a singer? Oh, what a world. Taking over the number 2 spot is Demi Lovato. The singer has always been open about her struggles with mental illness and addiction, but that was not always the case. She wasn't very transparent back in her Disney days when she starred on Sunny with a Chance and Camp Rock. In more recent interviews, she has revealed that she struggled with bulimia after getting bullied for her weight while working on Disney. She said she was performing concerts on an empty stomach and started self-medicating for her depression. The pressures of her Disney career quickly caught up to her, which might be why she was so angry in 2012 when Disney Channel made a joke in one of their scripts about eating disorders. Demi lashed out at them on Twitter and tweeted, "I find it really funny how a company can lose one of their actresses from the pressures of an eating disorder and yet still make jokes about that very disease." They responded immediately and said that they were removing both episodes that included the jokes and said it was never their intention to make light of eating disorders. In our number 1 spot is Bella Thorne. This story of Bella has become famous ever since she shared it with her fans. She found fame as a young child on the Disney TV series Shake It Up, but it was cancelled in 2013 despite being the number 1 series in 2 demographics. People thought she was going to stay with Disney and move on to her next project, but it seemed like she was fed up with taking orders from them. After leaving the network, Bella revealed that one time they threatened to fire her after she posted a photo of herself wearing a black bikini. They ended up telling her mom that they cannot afford to fire her at that point, but if she does anything like that again, they will. The worst part about the whole thing was that Bella's mom was the one who bought her that bikini. Once this story came to surface, Bella opened up more about her Disney experience and said she was forced to talk with a higher voice so that she would appeal to Disney's demographic. Even off the show, like during interviews and press, she was asked to change her tone. For anyone who does not follow Bella, she naturally has a deeper voice. Long story short, Bella stopped tolerating the demands and went on to pursue a very different career. She's now acting full-time, putting out music, and is also running an OnlyFans company. No lie. Starting us off at number 10 is Zac Efron. Fans were not happy when he did not show up to the High School Musical reunion, and many people wondered why. It appeared that we were not all in this together after all, because he was the only one who did not show up. He says he was filming Dirty Grandpa at the time and couldn't make it, but some of his comments have made fans believe differently. Zac admitted he can't celebrate High School Musical because it's not real. He said, "You can't enjoy or celebrate it. It's not a real thing. The face on the lunchbox and you can't share that with your friends." He revealed a lot about his experience with the movie throughout the years and also revealed they removed his recorded voice tracks from the final cut of the movie without even telling him. They replaced his voice with another singer, Drew Seeley, but Zac fought for his voice to be left in the sequel. He said he had to put his foot down and fight to get his real voice in the movies, which is actually really awkward if you ask me. Like, what an awkward position to be in as a teen when you were hired for that role, which required singing. Up next, number 9 is Nick Jonas. He is another Disney OG who has had some things to say about his years spent working with Disney. He has said some positive things, admitting that he has good memories and that it felt like he was going to summer camp sometimes. But with that, he also said there was a lot of drama because people started dating and then throughout the years they would just go and date other people on Disney, so it got very messy. But that is kind of expected. He also said that Disney makes you put on a persona and that creative control is taken away. He said the network has its faults and also said, I quote, "Disney doesn't create role models, it creates characters," which is a pretty bold statement because a lot of his fans idolize him for his characters on the TV shows and movies, but that is not really him. So their characters might be role models, but that's why fans get so shocked when like the star themselves does something that is so out of character compared to like what their personal life is about. Like Miley Cyrus. Although I think she went a little above and beyond. Swiping the number 8 spot is Christina Aguilera. Yes, she was on Disney. How can we ever forget that she was one of the members of the Mickey Mouse Club alongside Britney Spears? But she was also one of the first people on Disney to let us know that there could be some drama with your co-stars because you're actually pitted against them oftentimes. Their feud has been the topic of conversation for years, and turns out they were kind of in competition with each other throughout their career, but it all started when they were on Disney. As they started getting older and breaking into their own individual careers, the world seemed to have a problem with Christina and often compared her to Britney. She told Cosmo, "I remember being hurt by these commercials on MTV, pitting Britney as the good girl and me as the bad girl. It's like, if I'm going to be demure and innocent, that's okay, but if I'm going to just be myself, I'm trouble." It's difficult breaking out of that Disney persona for one thing, but doing that while you're being compared to your former co-star is even worse. In spot number 7 is Ashley Tisdale. Speaking of co-star rivalry, I bet you thought everything was peaches and creams on the High School Musical cast. Two characters who seemed to be inseparable were the Evans twins, Ryan and Sharpay Evans. Their sibling duo is iconic in the Disney world, but Ashley let us know that her time on Disney wasn't always what it seemed to be. Apparently, she and Lucas Grabeel, who played her brother Ryan, got off on the wrong foot during the audition process and hated each other because of it. Years down the road, they made a YouTube video together where they did a cover to one of their High School Musical songs, but they spoke about their off-screen drama first. She said, "We were not close, we were not good friends, let's just be honest. It's been 10 years, we can totally talk about this now. We hated each other, like, I'm not kidding." Lucas explained where the animosity came from and said that during their audition, she gave him unsolicited notes which he did not ask for, and it rubbed him the wrong way. Basically, it was just a very Sharpay thing to do. Luckily, now that their time on Disney is well over, they are able to be friends. Up next, number 6 is Vanessa Hudgens. She's always been one to say that her Disney experience on High School Musical has always been a love-hate relationship. Dating her co-star Zac Efron was difficult because all the girl fans were always all over him, and she admitted to getting jealous and insecure about it. Outside of her relationship though, she revealed it was difficult for her to break away from her role as Gabriella when trying to book work outside of Disney. She said she had to put in some serious effort to break the typecast and shed that Disney star stigma. During an interview, she said that Disney, I quote, "closed people's minds up as to which characters I could portray." Luckily, she was able to make it happen, and she's starred in a handful of movies since then, and even Broadway shows, so she did something right.
Number 5, Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato opened up about her time on the network to Harper's Bazaar in March 2020 and admitted that they had a hard time with the Disney workload, which, as a kid, was likely way more than normal. They covered themselves at first by saying, quote, "I'm grateful for the opportunities that I got, but despite that, they also said, quote, do I wish that I'd had more downtime? Yes. I think when you are a teenager and you're given your big break, you'll do anything to make it happen. I do feel that a lot of the way some of my life was handled and lived led me to kind of having a bit of a downfall just because I was so overworked and I wasn't dedicating enough time to my mental health or my personal life." Now, while she didn't so much speak about the restrictiveness of the network like the other stars have, she spoke more about the effect of imposing a celebrity lifestyle onto a growing human being, and in a separate interview with Billboard from 2016, Demi joked that they had PTSD after leaving the channel. They added, quote, "We joked around that it was Disney high, except we were all shooting shows and really overworking ourselves." Number 4, Selena Gomez. Just like a lot of other Disney stars, Selena Gomez, who got her Disney fame from being the main character of Disney Channel's Wizards of Waverly Place, felt that her time at Disney started to paint her as someone who she wasn't, like almost everyone else on this list. When speaking with the New York Times in 2015 about moving away from that image, she said, quote, "I'm growing and changing. I was in a relationship and I was being managed by my parents, and I was still under Hollywood and Disney. And I was being held to this expectation of being the good girl." She continued, "I knew deep down that this wasn't what I wanted to do. Being exhausted, forcing something that wasn't right, even in my personal life, I had to have moments where I was crying and I was like, why am I not in love with what I do? I was forced to get very uncomfortable for a while in order to make the decisions I made." Now, while that seems pretty much par for the course here, quite some time later, during the Television Critics Association press panel in August 2021, she elaborated on what I personally think is the the main issue with becoming a Disney child star. She said, quote, "I signed my life away to Disney at a very young age and I didn't know what I was doing because, you know, she was a kid." Number 3, Coco Jones. Coco Jones starred in the Disney Channel original movie Let It Shine, which is where she found her primary Disney Channel successes. But she also had recurring roles on 2 Disney series, So Random and Good Luck Charlie, competed in Radio Disney's The Next Big Thing singing competition, and signed with Hollywood Records music label, which is owned by Disney. But then, kind of as soon as it all started, it began to unwind. In a 2020 YouTube live stream, she revealed that a Let It Shine sequel was planned, but that it was canceled for reasons completely unknown to her. She was also apparently supposed to get her own show, which also never came to be. Hollywood Records, though, seemed to be the main cause for concern here. They dictated what the celeb could wear, say, and sing, and the people that the network supplied her to work with wanted her to sound, quote, sellable, which is a term that is up to interpretation by you guys. She put out a few singles and an EP, but right before her actual album was supposed to drop with the record label, the label dropped her. And apparently they told Coco, quote, "We don't know what to do with you." At that point in her life, she was homeschooled after dropping out to make Disney and her career her priority. Afterwards, she understandably dealt with depression, but with the support of her parents, she graduated high school early and moved to LA. Going forward, she booked the role of Hilary Banks on Bel Air, signed a new record deal with High Standards and Def Jam Recordings, and dropped her major label debut single, Caliber. So good job. Number 2, Ashley Tisdale. Another heavyweight Disney star, Ashley Tisdale played Sharpay Evans in Disney's High School Musical trilogy and in her own spin-off, Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure. She also played major roles in The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and Phineas and Ferb. Now, after the first High School Musical movie, which, if you don't know, was huge, Ashley joined her castmates for High School Musical The Concert. While on the tour, which itself must have been both a dream come true and a nightmare with all the scheduling and little downtime, she also performed her own original song, He Said, She Said. However, similar to the experience that Jonas Brothers had, Disney made her change certain lyrics. In a TikTok, Ashley said that Disney made her change the line "kissing like that" to "dancing like that" for the tour. The original lyrics were "Baby, I can see us moving like that. Baby, I can see us touching like that. Baby, I can see us kissing like that. We don't need no more he said, she said." But while I get the image that Disney is trying to uphold here, I don't believe changing an artist's original work is fair. Just take the song out in its entirety. That would have been my idea. I think that would still not be okay. So just like, I don't know, leave it alone. And finally, in at number 1, Alison Stoner. You may recognize Alison Stoner for her supporting roles in actually quite a few Disney Channel productions, like The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Camp Rock 2, The Final Jam, and Phineas and Ferb. I remember them best from Cheaper by the Dozen, but that's just me. They have been one of those few Disney Channel veterans that has actually tried to make things better for other stars going forward, and they've been pretty vocal about some of Disney's shenanigans. In a 2021 YouTube interview, Alison said, "While traversing extreme peaks and valleys of global fame, hidden medical hospitalizations, artistic milestones, rapid adultification, and multi-layered mistreatment I wish on no one, I narrowly survived the toddler to train wreck pipeline." That's a hell of a way to describe surviving Disney. They went on to say, "As someone who lived it and witnessed thousands endure alongside me, I can attest that what is missing from the pipeline narrative are clear action plans for intervention, long-term prevention, and accountability from studios, agencies, and guardians." Unlike other stars, Alison turned their experience into ideas to improve the safety and well-being of other children in entertainment, such as requiring studios to have a mental health professional on set, improving child labor laws, and making media and industry literacy courses mandatory for guardians and representatives. One of my favorite quotes from the celeb, though, goes like this, quote, "If we disrupt and heal the toddler to train wreck pipeline, we won't need another cautionary memoir." And that's actually helpful.